Bacardi 151 is a discontinued brand of highly alcoholic rum made by Bacardi Limited of Hamilton, Bermuda. It is named for its alcohol concentration level of 151 US proof, that is, 75.5% alcohol by volume. This is much higher than typical rum, which averages around 35%-40% alcohol by volume. Bacardi 151 was sold in the United States and Canada from at least 1963 until 2016, when its production was discontinued. Etymology. The name Molotov cocktail was coined by the Finns during the Winter War in 1939. The name was a pejorative reference to Soviet Foreign Minister Vyacheslav Molotov, who was one of the architects of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact on the eve of World War II. The name's origin came from the propaganda Molotov produced during the Winter War, mainly his declaration on Soviet state radio that incendiary bombing missions over Finland were actually airborne humanitarian food deliveries for their starving neighbors. As a result, the Finns sarcastically dubbed the Soviet incendiary cluster bombs Molotov bread baskets in reference to Molotov's propaganda broadcasts. When the handheld bottle firebomb was developed to attack and destroy Soviet tanks, the Finns called it the Molotov cocktail, as a drink to go with his food parcels. Despite the now infamous name, the formal Finnish military term for the weapon type was actually burn bottle. Other names. The weapon most often known as Molotov cocktail goes under a great variety of other names around the globe. Some are more formal than others, but the weapon is often given a descriptive name in the respective language. Common nicknames. Military names: Finland Finnish, Poltopullo, Fenno Swedish, Brandflaska. Japan Kaenban. Nazi Germany German, Brandflask Brandgranate. Soviet Union Russian, Trzhigatelnaya Butelka, lit. Incendiary bottle Russian, Tr Butelka Skory Ukaz Hidkostyu, lit. Bottle with combustible liquid. Sweden Swedish, Brandflaska. USA Frangible grenade incendiary bottle grenade. Design. A Molotov cocktail is a glass bottle containing a flammable substance such as petrol, alcohol, or a napalm-like mixture, and a source of ignition such as a burning cloth wick held in place by the bottle's stopper. The wick is usually soaked in alcohol or kerosene, rather than petrol. For winter warfare, a method of ignition has been to attach storm matches to the side of the bottle, as these are less likely to be put out by wind. Some examples are fitted with ballast for improved throwing accuracy. In action, the wick/match is lit and the bottle hurled at a target such as a vehicle or fortification. When the bottle smashes on impact, the ensuing cloud of fuel droplets and vapor is ignited by the attached wick, causing an immediate fireball followed by spreading flames as the remainder of the fuel is consumed. Other flammable liquids, such as diesel fuel, methanol, turpentine, jet fuel, acetone, and isopropyl alcohol, have been used in place of, or combined with, petrol. Thickening agents, such as solvents, extruded polystyrene foam, baking soda, petroleum jelly, tar, strips of tire tubing, nitrocellulose, motor oil, rubber cement, detergent, and dish soap, have been added to promote adhesion of the burning liquid and to create clouds of thick, choking smoke. There also exist variations on the Molotov cocktail concept where the bottle is filled with a smoke-generating mixture such as sulfur trioxide solved in chlorosulfonic acid. These so-called smoke bottles do not need a source for ignition, as the mixture reacts with the air once the bottle is smashed. Development and use in war. Spanish Civil War. Improvised incendiary devices of this type were used in warfare for the first time in the Spanish Civil War between July 1936 and April 1939, before they became known as Molotov cocktails. In 1936, General Francisco Franco ordered Spanish nationalist forces to use the weapon against Soviet T-26 tanks supporting the Spanish Republicans in a failed assault on the nationalist stronghold of Cesena, near Toledo, 40 kilometers south of Madrid. After that, both sides used simple petrol bombs flame with toxic gas or petrol-soaked blankets with some success. Tom Wintringham, a veteran of the International Brigades, later publicized his recommended method of using them. We made use of petrol bombs roughly as follows: take a 2 pounds glass jam jar. Fill with petrol. Take a heavy curtain, half a blanket, or some other heavy material. Wrap this over the mouth of the jar, tie it round the neck with string, leave the ends of the material hanging free. When you want to use it, have somebody standing by with a light. Put a corner of the material down in front of you, turn the bottle over so that petrol soaks out round the mouth of the bottle and drips onto this corner of the material. Turn the bottle right way up again, hold it in your right hand, most of the blanket bunched beneath the bottle, with your left hand take the blanket near the corner that is wetted with petrol. Wait for your tank. When near enough, your pal lights the petrol-soaked corner of the blanket. Throw the bottle and blanket as soon as this corner is flaring. See that it drops in front of the tank. The blanket should catch in the tracks or in a cog wheel, or wind itself round an axle. The bottle will smash, but the petrol should soak the blanket well enough to make a really healthy fire which will burn the rubber wheels on which the tank track runs, set fire to the carburetor or frizzle the crew. Do not play with these things. They are highly dangerous. Khalkhin Gol. The Battle of Khalkhin Gol, a border conflict of 1939 ostensibly between Mongolia and Manchukuo, saw heavy fighting between Japanese and Soviet forces. Short of anti-tank equipment, Japanese infantry attacked Soviet tanks with gasoline-filled bottles. Japanese infantrymen claimed that several hundred Soviet tanks had been destroyed this way, though Soviet loss records do not support this assessment. World War II. Finland, Great Britain, United States. Other fronts of World War II. Modern warfare. During the Second Battle of Fallujah in 2004, U.S. Marines employed Molotov cocktails made with 1 part liquid laundry detergent, 2 parts gas while clearing houses when contact is made in a house and the enemy must be burned out. The tactic was developed in response to the enemy's tactics of guerrilla warfare and particularly martyrdom tactics which often resulted in U.S. Marine casualties. The cocktail was a less expedient alternative to white phosphorus mortar rounds or propane tanks detonated with C4, all of which proved effective at burning out engaged enemy combatants. During the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry told civilians to make Molotov cocktails, locally called Bandera smoothies, to fight Russian troops. The Defense Ministry distributed a recipe for producing Molotov cocktails to civilians through Ukrainian television, which included the use of styrofoam as a thickening agent to aid in helping the burning liquid stick to vehicles or other targets. The Pravda brewery of Lviv, which converted from making beer to Molotov cocktails, said that their recipe was 3 cups polystyrene, 2 cups grated soap, 500 milliliters gasoline, 100 milliliters oil, 1 jumbo tampon fuse. The Russian media control organization Roskomnadzor sued Twitter for not removing instructions for how to prepare and use Molotov cocktails, so that Twitter had to pay a fine of 3 million rubles. Civilian use. Molotov cocktails were reportedly used in the United States for arson attacks on shops and other buildings during the 1992 Los Angeles riots. Molotov cocktails were also used by protesters and civilian militia in Ukraine during violent outbreaks of the Euromaidan and the Revolution of Dignity. Protesters during the Ferguson riots used Molotov cocktails. In Bangladesh during anti-government protests at the time of the 2014 national election, many buses and cars were targeted with petrol bombs. A number of people burnt to death and many more were injured during the period 2013-2014 due to petrol bomb attacks. In the 2019-20 Hong Kong protests, protesters used Molotov cocktails to defend themselves from police or to create roadblocks. Protesters also attacked an MTR station and caused severe damage. A journalist was also hit by a Molotov cocktail during the protests. Molotov cocktails were used by some during the George Floyd riots of 2020 in the United States. Non-incendiary variants. During the protests in Venezuela from 2014 and into 2017, protesters had been using Molotov cocktails similar to those used by demonstrators in other countries. As the 2017 Venezuelan protests intensified, demonstrators began using puputovs, a play on words of Molotov, with glass devices filled with excrement being thrown at authorities after the PSUV ruling party official, Jacqueline Faria, mocked protesters who had to crawl through sewage in Caracas Guaire River to avoid tear gas. On May 8, the hashtag #Puputov became the top trend on Twitter in Venezuela as reports of authorities vomiting after being drenched in excrement began to circulate. A month later, on June 4, 2017, during protests against Donald Trump in Portland, Oregon, police claimed protesters began throwing balloons filled with unknown, foul-smelling liquid at officers. Legality. As incendiary devices, Molotov cocktails are illegal to manufacture or possess in many regions. In the United States, Molotov cocktails are considered destructive devices under the National Firearms Act and are regulated by the ATF. Will Casey Floyd, from Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, was arrested after throwing Molotov cocktails at Seattle police officers during a protest in May 2016. He pleaded guilty for using the incendiary devices in February 2018. In Simpson County, Kentucky, 20-year-old Trey Alexander Gwathney Law attempted to burn Franklin Simpson County Middle School with 5 Molotov cocktails. He was found guilty of making and possessing illegal firearms and was sentenced to 20 years in prison in 2018. Symbolism. Due to the Molotov's ease of production and use by civilian forces, the Molotov cocktail has become a symbol of civil uprising and revolution. The Molotov's extensive use by civilian and partisan forces has also thereby led to the Molotov becoming a symbol representing civil unrest. The Molotov has strong association with anarchism due to anarchists' use of the Molotov, and anarchists engaging in civil uprisings and unrest across the world, with protesters organizing from Chile and Iran to Egypt and Hong Kong. The contrast of a Molotov cocktail and an organized force has become a popular symbol in popular culture, and often utilized as a weapon in various video games. Gallery. See also: flamethrower, improvised firearm, insurgency weapons and tactics, urban guerrilla warfare, Number 73 grenade, Molotov bread basket, improvised explosive device. Trademark 31-210 Improvised Munitions Handbook. References.